Morning, brothers and sisters in the Dharma. The topic today is joy of merit making. Okay. Now, before we start, let us define what is merit. Okay. Now, I'm sure you all know what is merit. Okay, can anybody explain the meaning of merit or the definition of merit? What is merit? Come on, you've been making merits every day. What is merit? Anybody? What is merit? Sorry? That which purifies the mind. Okay? Now, in the layman term, right, we sometimes just define as a good action, right? Something which is good. But in the more subtle definition, we define it as something which purifies or cleanses the mind. Right? That is the real definition of merit. There is this popular verse that you are very familiar with. Do good, avoid evil. All Buddhas will teach this. They will teach people to do good, avoid evil, and purify the mind. Now you will notice that many religions, they actually preach the first two. They will ask you to do good, avoid evil. But few preaches the third, that is to purify the mind. Right? So in Buddhism, the mind is very important. If you refer to the Dhammapada, it is said that mind is the forerunner of all good states. Mind is chief, mind meet are they. If one speaks or acts with a pure mind, right, because of that, happiness follows one. Even as one's shadow that never leaves. So, the mind is very important in Buddhism. And that is why every time we do merit, right, our mind must be pure. So, what do you mean by pure mind? Or that which cleanses the mind? Now, by pure mind, we mean mind that is free from the three roots of evil. Right? That is greed, hatred, and delusion. Now, if we are free from these three roots, then it will lead us away from the bondage of craving and suffering. Right? That is the ultimate goal, you see, of all Buddhists. That is to eradicate suffering. Right? And this is where our practice of merits come in, so that we can actually free our mind from this bondage of the three roots of evil. Okay, why do we perform merits? Why are merits so important to us in our daily life? So to understand this, we must understand the motivating factor behind our actions. Everything we do, we have an intention, a purpose, right? And the cause of us doing that, right, is what that motivates us. Right? So why do we perform merits? Right? To understand this, we have to understand the law of karma. And we know that if we perform good deeds, then we will reap the good results. If we perform evil deeds, the evil results will follow. So understanding law of karma is important. And in the Dhammapada, it says that birth depends on action. It is our actions that determines our birth. Some are born in a womb, that is, some are born as humans. Evildoers are born in the evil states. The well-conducted go to the blissful states. That is, the undefiled ones pass away into Nibbana. Right? So the state we are born in, whether we are human, we are in Deva, right? All this depends on our actions. And our actions are really our merits. Right? If we perform good actions, then they are our merits. So understand this law of karma also helps us to do more good. Right? We know that the results are there if we do good. And also our last thought moment, right, is actually dependent on our merits or our habits. Right? So the more we do good, the more good habits we have. And during the last thought moment before one passes away, right, the good thoughts will arise. And this will actually determine the next plane of existence. So the law of karma operates by itself, and whatever good that is done, the results will be reaped either immediately in this life itself, in the next life, or in subsequent life. That is why you see that even an evildoer sees good as long as evil ripens not. Right? Even a person might be doing a lot of evil, but he still enjoys the fruits. Right? But when it bears fruit, then he sees evil. Right? Now nowadays you can see a lot of people who are untruthful, who are evil, and yet they are in a very comfortable state. Right? They have money, they are rich. Right? Now it's because the evil results have not ripened yet. Even a good person sees evil so long as good ripens not. But when it bears fruit, then the good ones see the good results. Now all these are in the Dhammapada, and it's actually the sayings of the Buddha. Right? So when such things happen, right, you could be doing a lot of merits, but yet you might not be able to see the results right now. Right? But do not lose heart on that, because according to this law of karma, it might not ripen in this life, but in the next life, or later in this life. So when we encounter such kind of happenings, like doing good and not receiving the results, right? What do? Right? Sometimes we get a bit discouraged, disheartened over our good actions. But if we really have faith and confidence in the Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, right, then we should not lose heart. In fact, we should do more good, because it is the good that conditions the good results from ripening. If you do a lot of bad, then the condition is not there. So even if you don't see the good results, there is more reason for you to form more merits, to condition the results. Another reason why we perform merits is because merits increases the roots of skill, right, while decreasing the whole of the unskillful roots. Now in Buddhism, we do not talk about right or wrong. Right? When you perform an action, we don't say it is the right action or wrong action, but we term it more as skillful and unskillful. So when we perform good merits, we actually try to perform more skillful actions which are free from greed, hatred, delusion. And we must understand that merit is not an end by itself. It is just the way towards higher attainment. Because by doing merit, you just can't attain enlightenment just by doing merit. But it is a way towards the higher achievement. And it is said that merit opens door. It opens opportunity. It gives us opportunity to increase our chance of good education, obtaining wealth, hearing the Dharma, and training of oneself. So, it helps us, it gives us opportunity. You find that people who do merit, when they are, let's say in their working career, you'll find that it is easier, there will be less obstacles in their life, and they'll be able to perform their daily routines with ease. Then there's also the conflict between the intellectual and emotional aspects. Now, if we do not perform merits or we do not practice the Dharma, right, then there can arise conflict. Conflict in the sense that some people, when they study the teachings of the Buddha, they just take it as an intellectual subject, right? And the emotional aspect is not taken into account. It is only when we practice the Dharma and continue to perform merits is that we are able to close this gap between intellectual and emotional. The next motivation of doing merits is happiness. Now, every one of us seek happiness, right? And it is happiness that moves a man from doing this merit, right? It could be happiness now or the future. So there is this motivation factor. That's why our topic here today is the joy of merit making. Something which will motivate you to do meritoriously. Right? It's not like, say, for example, if a man is hungry, right, and starving, right, and if you tell him to do something where he can get his meal only in a month's time, he won't do it. Because right now and then he is starving. So it's the same thing. When people ask you to do merits, right, and if he or she were to tell you that the results of the merit can only be seen in later lives, or maybe later in his life, not the immediate result, then you won't be motivated to do the merits. Right? Because happiness is the motivating factor. And if you can't see it, then it is difficult for you to perform. So there must be joy or happiness when someone performs merits, so that the immediate results can be seen here at this very moment. So let us look at the type of merits we have. Actually, the Buddha has laid down 10 ways of making merits, right? And these 10 ways are giving, that is generosity, virtue or morality, mind development, meditation, reverence, service, dedication of merits, rejoicing in others' merits, listening to the Dharma, teaching the Dharma, and straightening of one's view. Now, some of these merits are communal activities, right? For example, when you do dana, right? Now, normally you have a group doing dana. But when you observe precepts or meditation, it is more on yourself. Right? You observe your precepts yourself. You cannot ask somebody to observe for you. Dana, you can donate the money, ask somebody to cook, and ask somebody to offer. But for the precepts, you have to do it yourself. For meditation, you have to do it yourself. You cannot say you pay somebody to observe precepts for you, right? Or do meditation for you. So there are communal activities as well as some are not communal, right? But whether it's communal or not, making merits always benefit other beings, right? And we have to understand this, because if we know this, then we'll find joy in doing it. Some people don't find joy in observing precepts because they don't see the relationship. When they observe precepts, what is the relationship? How do they benefit other beings? Right? Now, if you can understand how you benefit other beings, then you find that there is happiness in observing precepts, even in doing meditation. So like giving benefit receivers. It also benefit oneself. Virtue benefit all beings. Mind development also benefit a lot of people. Reverence, it creates harmony in society. Service, it helps the world better, a better place to live in. Dedication shows that one is concerned for the welfare of others. Rejoicing will cause great peace and harmony. Right? Listening to the Dhamma, one will learn the good way of conduct. Teaching the Dhamma is the sharing of the highest gift. And strengthening of one's view is the eradication of ignorance. Right? So these are the various ways we can perform merits. And now let us go into detail a bit on how these merits are performed. So whenever we perform merits, there must be joy and happiness. That is the motivating factor. Otherwise the process will be incomplete. You might have results, you will have results in the future life, right? But the immediate one will be joy and happiness. It must be done with a sincere heart, right? Out of compassion, and should be something which comes from within. Right? It is not something that people force on us. Right? If people ask us, ask you to go and do some charity, then it is something like being forced on. Right? It's something not been asked to do. So in giving, sometimes we are put in a very awkward position. For example, when I say the Red Crescent members, they come around with a team and ask for donation. And sometimes it's out of convenience that we give, you see. Right? Because so many people are around seeing us, so you better put a cent or two, right? So we put something in out of convenience, rather than out of our own compassion. But if we were to contemplate on the donation that we give, that is how this donation can benefit other beings, right? How this donation will be used by the Red Crescent, right? Then you will have a slight happiness, at least a joy in the action you have done, right? That whatever you have done, it will benefit somebody, and you have done something worthwhile, and it's worth doing it. So if we can contemplate on that, the immediate result is the joy that arises. Right? So actually we don't look beyond this at this moment. We just look at this present moment, how it arises, to recognize the joy and happiness that arises. So recognition of this is important. Right? And it's only sometimes when we experience misfortune that we can appreciate these kind of things. Right? To appreciate how these Red Crescent people use the money. Right? Sometimes if we are the victims, then we will appreciate it more. Because this money will be used on us if we are the victims. It also applies to experience like when you visit people in the hospital. Sometimes you just take it for granted that visiting your friend is just your duty, that's all, when he or she is in hospital. But the thing is, the actual experience from the patient is different. When you're in a hospital for 1 week and when people come and see you, the feeling is very different. Right? There'll be a lot of happiness because, hospital, you'll be very lonely, and the only people who see you will be the nurses, and they don't come all the time. They are not with you 24 hours. So, the happiness of the patient, right, is tremendous when people come and visit them. Right? So it's only when we have experienced that, we have been hospitalized, only then we sort of appreciate this kind of actions. And when your friends, let's say, are hospitalized or what, you find that it's not only a duty to go there. Right? It is something which you personally feel that there is a need to do it. And by doing it, you will benefit the other person. This is a personal experience. When I was in hospital, many people came to visit me, and you can feel the kind of joy and happiness you have. Right? Also in cases like blood donation. Blood donation, I recently went for a blood donation campaign, and donated some blood. And the joy that arises in me, right, not only lasts for a few hours after the donation, but it exists for a whole day. Right? Throughout the day, you find that there is this joy in you. That whatever you do, it's very pleasant. So the joy in giving to others, and also the joy in knowing your actions, knowing that people will both benefit from this blood that you are giving. Even the joy in giving a few cents to a beggar is a joy. And that is actually a result of your actions. So we need not see far, but the immediate effect. You can even have joy in doing dana, giving alms, right, to the monks. And also, especially to our parents, right? Dana to our parents. That is, buying things back and also maybe sending money back, right? Now, it's obvious that joy arises because there is love between parents and children. Right? Our dana, our generosity towards them is not only developed through love, but also through gratitude. Right? We know what they have done for us, and it is through gratitude that we perform these kind of actions. And we know that they'll benefit. That is why we are happy, right? There is joy. So there are many ways we can do dana, right? To our parents, right? To the monks, even to the men in the street, we can do dana. Okay, next we have sila, the joy of observing precepts. Now, great joy arises from the simple observance of precepts, because when we observe precepts, it actually involves compassion and wisdom. Compassion when we don't kill, right? We have compassion for other beings. We don't harm other life. We practice not out of fear, but as a voluntary exercise. So when we practice these precepts, we know that we are living a life which is not to be blamed, not blameful, and we create a lot of harmony. You don't steal, you don't commit adultery, you don't lie, and also you don't take intoxicants. You find that you will create a society where people trust each other, where suspicion is less. So observing the precepts actually bring harmony to the society. If everybody were to do that, you don't even have to lock your door when you come to the temple. Right? So you can just imagine the tremendous results it can give if everybody were to observe the precepts. Then we have mind development. Right? Now, mind development, we have two. One is to calm the mind. The other one is to gain insight or the growth of wisdom. Right? Now, you notice that when you meditate, sometimes you come to a state where you are very calm, tranquil, right? And there is joy. You wouldn't like to come out from that state because you are enjoying the calmness. Because every time in our daily lives we have a lot of problems, a lot of worries, and we meditate, we really calm ourselves. And we get attached to it, attached to the calmness. Now, meditation helps to calm the defilements that arises. So our worries, our restlessness, our greed, our anger, all these are calmed down. They are not eradicated yet. They are just calmed down. So this calmness already has given us a certain sense of joy, a certain sense of happiness. And for further development, we go into the insight meditation, where we develop the mind to wisdom. That is, when we are able to recognize the defilements. Right? So meditation is like you're having a glass of muddy water. Right? To be able to see through the glass, you need to have a clear vision. So in a muddy water, you can't see through. So it's only when the sediments in this muddy water, they settle, only then you have a clear vision. So it's like your mind, full of defilements, and you just can't see. Right? You just can't differentiate what is good, what is bad. And it's only when we calm the mind, have these defilements, settle, only then we can actually have wisdom to be able to carry off ignorance. Next, you have reverence. Now, reverence is an attitude development, and it actually cuts down pride. When you do, let's say, prostration before the Buddha, you are actually cutting down pride. Because to do the prostration is not easy. Not everybody has this quality to do it. You find that some people, they come to the temple, they don't bow to the Buddha. They don't even do the Anjali. They will just stand outside. Maybe the wife will go in and bow and pay respect. They will just be around the temple, walking around. So because of this pride only, they cannot do it. Right? And we must understand that even kings and those in the higher clans, all these, they pay respect to the Buddha. Right? What more we are not anybody. Right? And we must understand that the Buddha has great virtues. That is why we pay respect. So to have this kind of attitude is good because it's only when we cut down pride that we can actually learn. Now pride is very dangerous because if everybody has pride and everybody thinks that he or she is better than others, then there's no way you can learn. Whatever the other person say, you will say that, no, I know much more than him. So there's nothing more you can learn. Right? So this is to cut down pride and to develop humility. It's to adopt a mind which is flexible and adaptable. This is commonly practiced in a Buddhist tradition where children will respect their parents, right? Then we respect the monks, right? And also the Buddha. So in fact the Buddha, he has used his wisdom to subdue the pride of the elderly Sakyas. If you remember that when the Buddha went back to his hometown in Kapaliwatu, he met with the elderly Sakyas. That means his relatives, who were much older than him. So if he were to preach to these elderly people, they would not listen to him because they feel that they have taken salt more than he take rice, you see. So they will never listen to him. So what he did was he performed the twin miracle. Right? It's a miracle where water and fire came up from the pores of his body. So this is to show that he is enlightened. Right? And only then other people will listen to him. That is to subdue their pride. If compassion is only limited to thoughts of compassion, right, then it is not enough. When you talk about compassion, it's not only through thoughts, right? But it should come also in action. Right? So we could have service to friends. Right? We can be of service to our friends, service to the temples. Right? Maybe, I think after this you will have a temple cleaning exercise. So you can give some of your service to the temple. You can also give service to organizations, right? Like BMS, where they organize many activities. So this can be a form of service. So if one can understand the great significance of this service, right, we would not think that our time is wasted in performing this kind of services. Right? Even a small thing, right, like carrying the chair, is service. Rearranging this chair after the talk is service. Because if you don't do it, others have to do it. Right? It's not that if you don't do it, it need not be done. It's just that the action is transferred to another person. So a service is important to all. So that's why you can find that certain people are so committed and they give priority in running social organizations and also religious organizations because they feel that their service is important. Their service will benefit people. And it is a worthy cause to work for. And in doing this service, if we understand the benefits, there will be joy. Joy arises. Now there was this story of this young man who wakes up every day early in the morning and he would walk along the beach just before sun rises And along the beach, you have a lot of starfish. Because during the night, where the tide is high, the starfish will all wash to the beach. And towards the early hours of the morning, when the tide resides, the starfish are left on the beach. Now, so this young man will walk along this beach and he'll pick one by one and throw it into the sea. There are thousands along the beach. So there's this young man who came along, and this old man who came along and asked this young man what he's doing. He says he's throwing this starfish back into the sea. Because if he doesn't do that, when the sun comes out, this starfish will be dried up. Right? So the old man told him that there are so many starfish on the beach. Right? Whatever you throw in is very insignificant. Right? You cannot throw in every starfish. So the young man replied that it might not make a difference, right, to all the starfish, because what he is doing is only a few, right? But it really makes a difference to this particular one. Right? So it shows that we might not be of service to everybody, right? But whatever service we can give, it does make a difference to whoever who benefit from this service. Okay, then there's dedication, transference of merits, and also rejoicing in other merits. Now, it is a common practice that whenever there is a meritorious deed or dana, you hear the bell ringing, right? This is a traditional practice in Thailand, especially in the villages. When they ring the bell, everybody in the village will know that somebody is performing merits in the temple. Right? So it is a time where everybody rejoices. That means you realize that there are still people who practice the Dharma. Right? So ringing the bell has this significance, right, of sharing merits with others. So it's not just to tell people, right? It's also sharing. And the common practice is when people perform merits, we will say sadhu. Right? That means it is excellent. Right? This is to share merits too. Right? We rejoice in their merits. We do not take envy that he can do more merits than us. But whatever merits he has done, it is an excellent thing. So it will reduce a lot of envy when we share merits with others. We rejoice in others' merits. Then we have listening to the Dhamma and preaching the Dhamma. Now these two will go hand in hand, listening and preaching. But it is sad to note that the Buddhist community are not very active in the latter, that is the preaching of the Dhamma. We find that in Malaysia especially, there are a lot of places that where people want to know about the Dhamma, but there is no opportunity for them, because the attitude of Buddhists in preaching the Dhamma, right, has not developed to a great extent, right, where people are able to share the Dhamma more extensively. So in listening to Dhamma, it is meritorious, right? There's this simile of how we can, what are the skills we can cultivate in listening to the Dharma. Now, when one listens to the explanation of the Dharma, one must listen to the voice who explains it without allowing the ears to distray. That is how we should listen to the Dharma. When one does not listen in such a way, what happens is like a precious liquid being poured into a pot while its opening turned downwards. Right? And though one's body is present in the preaching hall, actually one does not hear a single word. So it's just like putting a pot upside down and you're trying to pour liquid on top of it. Right? So the body is there, the pot is there, but not a single word enters. Then there's this type of people who, when one does not bear in mind the Dharma, which has been heard, even though the words have reached the ears, what happens is like a precious liquid being poured into a leaking pot. That means this time the pot is leaking. Right? The liquid goes in, but it is not retained. Right? So, however much the Dharma one may have heard, still one does not know how to instill it into one's mind and how to take it into heart. This is the second type of hearing. The third type is when one hears the explanation of the Dharma but listens to the whole. They are concerned with the thoughts about worldly life only, okay? And desire for fame, or else with thoughts tainted with 5 passions, okay? Arising out of the 3 emotions of greed, hatred, and delusion. Okay? Not only will Dharma not become beneficial to oneself, but it will even turn into opposite. Okay? Being likened to a healthy and nourishing juice poured into a poisonous pot. This time it's a poisonous pot. So whatever Dharma you put in, it has no effect. Right? Because of the defilements. The defilements are very strong. Right? So these are the 3 types of hearing. Some people, they are present but they can't hear a word. Some people, they can hear but they do not internalize it. Right? And some people, their minds are so full of defilements. Right? Whatever goes in, whatever good goes in, it turns to evil. So when one listens to the Dharma, one must listen like a deer listening to the sound of music. A deer likes this music, especially the Indian type of music. When one thinks and contemplates about it, one must be like shearing sheep. Now, shearing the sheep, you need a lot of skill. You want to contemplate, you need a lot of skill in contemplation. So, we need to make it a living experience and establish its validity. Right? We must test the Dharma. Only then it becomes part of us. So when one comes to possess the fruits of the Dharma, one is like the sun free from clouds. That means you're not deluded. Right? So there's a lot of wisdom to be gained from listening to the Dharma. Right? If we know how to digest it. After listening, we contemplate, right? Then we practice. And finally, we can see the results to test the validity. Now, after hearing the Dharma, it's not the end. Now, as Buddhists, we should, out of compassion, we should try to propagate the Dharma. Now, you need not be a good speaker, a public speaker, to propagate the Dharma. There is a wrong misconception. Some people think that only when they know how to stand here, they can propagate the Dharma. But you find that you can even be, let's say, part of a small Dharma discussion group. And you can contribute. Right? And what you contribute is also sharing the Dharma. By sharing what you know. Even among friends and colleagues, or even your parents, brothers and sisters, you can approach them as individuals and tell them about the Dharma. Right? This is how Dharma is shared. Right? Not only to the masses, but through individuals. It can be one-to-one when you sit with your friends for lunch, or maybe after work. You can talk about the Dharma and share what you know. So preaching the Dharma is actually something which everyone have to cultivate. Right? Cultivate to the extent that we find joy in sharing what is good. Because if we find that the Dharma is not beneficial to us, we wouldn't want to share it. Only when it's beneficial, then we'll share it. And the last one is strengthening of one's view. It is through knowledge, right? Through all our practice, listening to the Dharma, and the practice that we realize. And we have to get rid of a lot of wrong views. That's why we need to straighten our views into the right direction. And if we have the right view, then we will see things as they really are, not as a illusion. So there is joy here in the non-attachment of things. If you go further into it, it's a non-attachment, and the results will be less suffering. So all these merits that we perform can actually be practiced daily. And we have to free our mind from these three roots of evil. Now, in the Dhammapada, it said that we have to do good again and again. Should a person perform a meritorious action, he should do it again and again. He should find pleasure therein, blissful in the accumulation of merits. And also we should cultivate the attitude of being quick in doing good and suppress evil. Make haste in doing good, check your mind from evils. For the mind of him who is slow in doing meritorious deeds delights in the evil. So the mind is very active. If you don't fill it with something good, then something evil will come in, something bad. So it's just like creating something positive thinking, positive thoughts, and followed with positive actions and positive speech. So to conclude, we must realize that there is great joy in performing merits. Right? Whatever merits that have been listed down, there must be joy in performing. And these are the immediate effects. The immediate effect we reap. If one says that Buddhism is talking about suffering only, right, then you're not very correct. Right? Because in doing merits, we have happiness. Of course, the Buddha taught about suffering, the eradication of suffering, and so on. But the practice of the Dhamma will always give rise to joy and happiness. If you give rise to suffering, then nobody will practice. So if we view the Dhamma as something which will give us joy and happiness, then we won't view Buddhism as a pessimistic religion. It's something very optimistic, or rather is more realistic. For as long as we have this apparent self, we will still be seeking for joy and happiness. Of course, joy and happiness is not the ultimate, but because we are still practicing, we still have this self in us. Right? We have the concept of I have, right? I own this, I own that. Right? this is me, my name is so and so, all this. So as long as you have this concept, then we will still be seeking for happiness. And happiness is always the motivating factor of why people perform certain actions. So if the self is there, it's very hard for us to practice the true altruistic actions, right? Actions which are non-self. Right? But these merits will become perfections. Right? Merits will become perfections only when it is performed completely without the reference to the self-idea. So only if we can eradicate this self-idea, only then we can turn this merit into perfections. Because by that time we wouldn't be bothered about the results. Whether we receive the results or not is not important. So as long as we have this self, we will still be seeking joy and happiness through our daily life, through our daily actions and so on. And let us do it by meritorious deeds. Thank you.
Do any of you have any further questions to ask Brother Tan Bak Siew?
Thank you. Good morning, brothers and sisters. I just like to express an opinion that is regarding the speaker who mentioned that why there are some people who do evil deeds and yet they enjoy the comfortable life. In fact, for me, I don't think it's comfortable. It's physically comfortable, but mentally, I think you'll be suffering, more than the suffering. That is where we have to choose. We want physical, physical or mental comfortable. That's it. Thank you.
Now you heard the comment. Do any other of you have any comments or any questions?